questions? If not, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda of the regular meeting of Monday, June the 15th? Councillor Ross, Councillor Butler.
Sorry, can we have anything? Sorry, I wanted to talk about the Chamber's business plans.
So Councillor Hammett wants to amend the agenda in regards to adding, what was it?
The Regional Chamber's business forum that's going to happen tomorrow. At Gallery.
Put that in your report.
Just because we're not reading the reports. I just wanted to-
You can speak to it.
Oh, okay.
The camera has
So we
to
don't
go.
So, okay, so
Chris Butler here.
motion on the table for the agenda as presented, all in favor? So carried. First item is to adopt the minutes of May 25th special meeting to go in camera. May I have a motion to adopt those minutes as presented? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammett, all in favor? So carried. Also need a motion to adopt the minutes of May 25th regular meeting as presented. May I have a motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor Krog. No discussion, all in favor? So carried. May I have a motion to adopt minutes of,
I can't get through this fast. Oh, go ahead.
to adopt the minutes of June 1st special meeting to go in camera as presented. Councillor Ross, Councillor Butler, I can't keep up with you guys. All in favor? So carried. And last but not least, adopt the minutes of the June 4th special meeting as presented. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Butler, all in favor? So carried. We'll now move on to our reports and questions from members of council. The verbal reports from council. The motion on the table is that all reports of members of council give verbal at this meeting to be received. May I have a motion to receive these verbal reports? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammett, discussion.
Is my report not attached to the agenda?
No.
I said it is. That's all right. I can just find it and read it. I'd like to discuss, we had at the last chamber board meeting, the chamber decided that they wanted to see how they could help with the community and with the environment that's here right now, and decided that they were going to conduct a forum to share ideas, network, create, and create business development in the boundary. So they're looking for public and business owners to come and attend. It's tomorrow from 6 to 8 at Gallery 2. So they're going to turn it into a roundtable discussion. It says join the chamber for a roundtable discussion of the current business environment, share tangible ideas for economic development. So anybody that is interested would like to attend. And there's one other thing on my report that I would like to address, and that is Councillor Thompson and I attended on May 27th, the senior and elected officials emergency preparedness workshop in Castlegar. We learned about emergency management in BC, the legislative responsibilities of emergency management cycle. And so I just thought I would ask, because I'm sure that we have between our our fire chief and our RCMP and other organizations that we have an emergency operations center and things are in place. But just wondering if there's a committee, and if there isn't, can we form a committee? The chamber, I discussed this with the chamber too, they'd also like to be involved in some way, perhaps through communications. And I use an example of something that happened to me traveling on the Trans-Canada Highway through the winter once. There was a whiteout, there was a 47 car pileup. The RCMP were directing traffic off the freeway into the closest community. And there was sort of like a mustering station set up at one of the larger hotels in town. It was an old hotel, but so everybody that came off the highway went there first. They were all directed there. And then from there, the people at the hotel, the desk people got behind and they got on the phones and they called every accommodation, every room in town that was available. They called all the church pastors who called all of their members. And we ended up getting billeted at somebody's private home, but the whole thing was organized to billeting people from that center. And since if Highway 3 ever closed down because of a disaster, do we have a plan in place? And how does this communication get out? And so I'm sure that you already have one, but I'm wondering if it can be presented to council at some point, and perhaps if there's any, say, fire drills, for example, where you run through mock scenarios and everybody knows their roles, because council doesn't know their roles in an emergency. And what they're supposed to do. Of course, it's going to be all hands on deck helping where they can, but I think it would be important for us to run through that as a new council as to what the procedures and policies would be for our community here. So is that something that I could make a motion that we have a meeting at our workshop at some point?
Or CEO's now.
Mr. Mayor, one of the things we've talked about with council is sent out an email regarding a request for a workshop for things that council wanted to get a little bit more information on that we would talk about in public meetings, whether it was protocol at council meetings, depending on other issues that council felt as though were relevant, that they wanted a little bit more information on zoning, planning issues, and that was, we were planning on doing a workshop in July. This type of situation is the fire chief would, through the I think it's BETHS, they would bring forward a tabletop exercise, and this tabletop exercise involves the officers within the organization, and ultimately council's role in a EOC event is they're just like the member of the public. The information will go out to the public. There's a communications process. There is everything. The fire chief and the regional area plan for mock events. So they might plan for an ice storm one year. They'll do a mock-up on that. They might simulate an airplane crash at the airport with a 747. They might simulate a hijacking of an airplane. They will go through a series of these events and they'll plan them. And our organization will protect the way that we would normally do this. This structure can be presented to council as a bit of an update for how we work in an EOC event. But this would be something that the fire chief would bring forward through the funding that's provided through the BETHS and our local EOC. So if that helps to do that, we could probably do that sometime in the fall. We can talk about whether the regional district is doing that and what they have planned, and the fire chief will present on that later on this year. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had one quick question for our CAO. In my report, I just stated that there's been some of the contractors in town that have had questions about the contract that was awarded for the gravel pit, that we only received one bid on the $175,000 project. And it wasn't advertised on BC Bid or in the newspaper, and the contractors are curious as to why it wasn't put out except on the city's website. And we found out about this project in March and started work on it in May. So we had time, and they'd just like to know in the future if these type of things will be advertised more.
Your CEO, would you like to update us on that, Mr. Allen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as part of our regular tendering process, and our purchasing policy. The city brought forward a new purchasing policy in 2012. We renewed the one from 2010. We have, it's an evolution in the process. So if I can explain the tendering process, the city met the policy expectations in our tendering process. When we put it out on the website, we're required internally under council's policy to advertise at BC Bid locally on our own website and the newspaper. We're not required to do all of them as defined in our purchasing policy. Now, that doesn't prohibit us from doing those things. The city staff met the purchasing policy expectations. It was brought to council in an open council meeting to discuss this. One of the things that we've suggested as a follow-up to those contractors that we know that we've had one question come back into us, and city staff have offered up an orientation session for local contractors to understand how they can participate in the process, because we all know that we have open budget meetings that every member of every contractor in the community could attend if they chose to, and they would have privilege to all the financial information that the city is putting out, just like every member of the public. So what we plan to do is respond to having an orientation session that we talk about our purchasing policy, how we work, how we advertise, where we advertise, when we advertise, and also how the local contractors can come up with the information on their own. We can't be always reaching out to everybody all the time, and in this situation, we're very fortunate to receive a bid on this project. We don't always get more than one bid, Mr. Mayor. We will have several situations where we can go through a process where we'd be lucky to get 2 bids. We might be fortunate to receive 4 bids. The economic climate is one that we can't always predict, so we can't always suggest when we're going to get more bids. So we did receive 1 bid. That bid was awarded as per the financial plan, and we are moving forward with an education session for those contractors, and that'll be an orientation that will be provided by our staff.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Yeah, I mean, my report came in as a late item, but I can quickly speak to a couple of items on that, if you don't mind. I can do it now while it's in context. Okay, I attended the BEDC meeting, and one of the things that I'd like to bring to your attention, and I'm sure everybody's familiar with it here, is the Kettle Valley Explore Central BC. I think it's a really good publication. They're already preparing for the 2016 publication, and the theme is going to be tunnels and trestles and tunnels. And there is an opportunity for Grand Forks to have quite a significant contribution. I see in the index here that Princeton, Penticton, Naramata, Grand Forks has a bit of a publication in here. I think it would be great if we could do it again, especially because we have so many trestles and tunnels. And what they want us to do is contact them now, tell them what events are happening in the next few months so that they can have somebody here to take photos or to send them photos. But they want to know what's happening now so they can come and take photos and use it for their publication. And another thing is, and just to give that council a heads up, is I had a very brief meeting, not too brief, but briefer than what happened today, with some folks in the community who are very interested in having chickens in the city. And I know it's something that's come up time and again, but they are talking about getting a delegation together and coming before council and talking about chickens in the city. And currently they are looking at, and I have also looked at other bylaws from other jurisdictions where they have chickens in the city and the rules around that. So basically it would be a simple cut and paste should we decide to go forward and allow people to have chickens in the city of Grand Forks. And that's all I want to give you the heads up on.
Councillor Butler.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question for Councillor Ross on her report. In there, you stated that you had a meeting for the Transition Housing Steering Committee on Thursday last week, I think it was, and I'm just wondering who attended and if that was advertised for the public to attend.
No, it was basically just for the steering committee initially to set up a terms of reference. So on the behavior of the committee, what our purpose is, what our goals are, what our intent is, and it wasn't the full everybody on the committee
was invited, but they all weren't able to attend. David Smith, he chaired the meeting, and we went through the terms of reference, and he's going to come back. We have another meeting in a couple weeks where we will review the terms of reference again moving forward, and there is some discussion about having a public meeting as we move forward. It's very early days. I can tell you who was there, but I have to find my notes.
Councillor Butler.
I'm just bringing it up because we have a lot of different committees meeting right now, discussing different things, and I think it's really important for the public to be involved. And the community charter and our procedures bylaw both state that the meetings need to be advertised for the public to attend. They need to be posted so that the public knows they're happening, and minutes for each meeting need to be taken and verified and supplied to council. So I'd just like council's, I'd like to make a motion that council affirms that they will follow and our procedures bylaw in relation to procedures for committee meetings.
I have a second on that motion.
I can do that.
Any Councillor Butler.
Our procedures as council or office of council just so council started posting so just to see what's going on in the committees, we can do that. It's just good communication so that we can be involved.
Councillor Hammond.
Well, I sit on the chamber as a liaison for the city, and the only people in attendance at the chamber meetings are the board of directors, unless they're having a forum like they are tomorrow night, and they have their business after business quite regularly, which is open to the public. But when the board is in session, it's closed, and then they do their own minutes. I don't record minutes. I take my own notes for my own sake, and I will provide notes like you see here, BCRCC board meeting. I'll take out information that I know that they're comfortable with me putting out there, but there's certain things discussed between the boards that it's not up to me or the community charter to dictate that I release their minutes. If the board of the chamber would like to present their minutes or speak to the council, they're more than welcome to, but I don't believe it's council's responsibility to release the minutes of outside committees.
Councillor Butler.
Right, the charter is clear that committees of council need to follow this. Committees of council need to follow the same procedures as a regular council meeting, which means that it has to be advertised, minutes have to be taken. And that's in everyone's best interest so that we know what's happening at committee meetings and that we can all be well informed.
How many committees does the council actually have? Just the one right now, right?
Well, it's active. There was the Deer City.
No, that's not a city committee.
Yes, isn't it? I thought it was.
It's an ad hoc.
It is.
It's an ad hoc committee.
It's ad hoc.
The cities. Oh, the city.
It's
Oh,
an
the
ad
city-
hoc
the
committee
city
being chaired by Gary Smith. So the only one I believe is the steering committee for the transition,
And the water rates committee.
and the water rates committee, which hasn't convened yet.
As mayor, I'd just like to put forward that I was caught off guard with this meeting, and in future, I would like to be informed by staff or CAO, because as mayor, I would like to be present at some of these meetings for committees or CAO.
I believe they're on the calendar.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that was presented at the regular council meeting that we were having this on the June 11th. I believe it was presented as part of David Smith's report that it was announced at that meeting. Because David Smith provided the transitional housing report and the process that we were going to be following. Council adopted that and then directed us to proceed with that. So we had that presentation that evening where Mr. Smith provided the presentation, and that's when we suggested that we're going to be having that meeting. So but a lot of times this stuff can be lost in the process, and I think that we did send out and you guys talked about appointing members of council, and then that's when we talked about it as well. So if we could do anything else to provide you more information, just please let us know.
Yes, I remember that we were appointing a committee at that time. It was an ad hoc committee from Mr. Smith, but I don't recall any dates that were stated. Maybe in future we could put it on our council calendar. That would be just a bit of advice. Councillor Ross.
Okay, so I'll just let you know that on June 23rd at 3:30, the Transition House Steering Committee is meeting again. But just to pop in isn't always appropriate. I mean, these are working meetings and people, you know, these are people that I was nominated to be a representative of council. I wouldn't just pop into another meeting because I don't think it's respectful. I trust my colleagues that they are doing the work and they will report back. And I don't think, I think it would be a little odd just to have random councillors just popping into meetings that we've been appointed to, committees that we've been appointed to, just to audit it.
Fully understandable, but I'm not a regular councillor. I'm the mayor.
You're
And it
not a
wasn't
regular
popping in.
councillor. No.
Exactly. So I'm only requesting that in future I be informed. Should I
Just
choose
let
to?
you know.
Thank you. Councillor Butler.
I'd have to respectfully disagree with that the charter is clear that all committee meetings are open to the public and need to be advertised to the public. I could read the section of the community charter, but maybe we could talk about this after.
I think if it's the difference being a council, a committee of the council or an ad hoc committee.
There is no provision for ad hoc in the community charter.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
I'm really having a difficult time understanding the issue. Are there members of the public that felt precluded from coming to the steering committee meeting for transition housing? Your worship, as mayor, you are a member of all committees of council. But I think if you're having people coming in to observe the proceedings, that is not going to assist in having good recommendations coming forward, because those people who are invited to participate as a part of the steering committee may find themselves very uncomfortable if it's being viewed, and we may not get public participation to sit on a committee. So I just have some difficulty understanding that, and I certainly haven't heard from anybody in the community that's upset that they haven't attended the steering committee meeting of the transition housing, or of the DEER committee, or of anything else. So unless somebody else has got members of the public expressing those concerns, I just think the point is moot.
Possible. Or CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, as part of the process, Councillor Butler is correct in what the charter says. One of the things that council endeavors to do once in a while is to have the ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee allows them a little bit more flexibility, because the council members are required to take their own minutes at the meetings. The council members are required to have the agendas posted by the deadline to the corporate officer to make sure they meet their deadlines. One of the things that council is challenged with is getting volunteers from the community to commit to the agenda items on the timelines that are expected, so we can meet our posting timelines. So council chose to move to ad hoc committees in the past that allows them a little bit more flexibility when they're having these meetings. When we're having these select committees or the standing committees of council, they are expected to be advertised as per the charter. Council wanted some flexibility in the past to have the ad hoc committee. So when you're hearing the term the ad hoc committee, the reference is that the committee is assembled of community members that are meeting on an ad hoc basis. They are regular meetings. They're meeting to provide the city some more information, to do the work of the city, to make some recommendations to committee as a whole, which is advertised as per the charter expectations. So we can clarify in the future, but at this time, that is the reason that we have that.
It's just the issue
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand because of the map issue in the past, but the actual committee is very collegial, and there is also people in the committee who are very uncomfortable. You know, they want to bring in folks that are actually in need of transition housing, have experience in transition housing, and we did discuss how intimidating that is for those individuals in the community who are going to come in and be advising the committee. And so that's why they were very clear that this is difficult for people, and if we have so many people coming up and just to, you know, be spectators, it is intimidating. It's not, this is a very delicate subject for people, and there is talk about having a public event where everybody can attend and have their input. But right now, it's early stages, and we're just, like I said, doing our terms of reference, getting the information, doing our research, gathering the research that's been done to date, and then deciding how we're going to move forward. But it is delicate, and we did talk about how intimidating it is for the people that we will be inviting to advise us to come in here, let alone coming in here with even more people than are already on the steering committee.
No, fully understandable the sensitivity of it, but I wasn't referring to public being at this meeting. I was more referring to myself as mayor being present. I have no idea if there's a public outcry that they want to be part of this. I haven't heard of anything like that, but I'm just stating that because I was involved in the meetings concerning the MAPS project, it would have been quite interesting for me to be present. I'd like to know about it. Councillor Butler.
I'd also just like to ask maybe that the minutes could be emailed out to council, so that I've been asking for Deer Committee minutes since I got in here, and I still haven't been able to see minutes from the Deer Committee. I'd just like to keep up to date on what the committees are doing, and I think that would be helpful.
My report is in my council.
Right, but official minutes for the committees are supposed to be taken. So I just want us to follow the proper procedure set out in the charter. And if you do have people coming to meetings that feel that it's sensitive, then you go under section 90, just like we do in regular council meetings. If you're talking about personnel issues, then you can post section 90 that your committee's going in camera for that.
Councillor Hammond.
I'm just going to repeat that the Deer Committee is an ad hoc committee, so if Councillor Butler wishes to have those minutes, I suggest she contact Garrett Smith, the chair of that committee, and request to be put on a mailing list.
Satisfied.
Prefer that we follow charter recommendations, but I don't think I'm getting anywhere.
Committee.
There's no ad hoc in the committee, right?
Okay. Councillors, please. So we have a motion on the table. So all in favor of receiving the reports for.
Councillor Butler has it.
I just put forward a motion just that council affirm that they wish to follow the procedures defined out in the community charter for committee meetings.
But we must still vote on the other motion first. Okay. Because it's not an amendment, so can we have a vote on the first question? Receiving the minutes. Councillor Ross, we all in favor, we already voted. All in favor?
The reports?
Yes. So now, Councillor Butler, can you put your motion forward next?
I'd just like to make a motion that council affirm that we will follow the community charter recommendations for committee meetings and post them and advertise them for the public and take proper minutes and distribute them afterwards.
May I have a seconder on that motion, please?
I already did second.
Okay. So is there any further discussions on that motion? Councillor Krog.
Yes, I believe that there are ways that we could advertise everything that we're talking about. And one reason that a lot of communities use the concept of the ad hoc is the expense. If you have a Deer Committee meeting at 7 o'clock at night, the minutes are taken, so it would be advertised, the minutes are taken, the staff time, the staff overtime to take those minutes. So there's a cost to that request. We try and follow the charter when it's for everything that we do. We have our own policies that we also try and adhere to. But as an example, in the past, we've had a dozen, if not more, ad hoc committees. So if we don't mind spending the money, like, I'm not gonna support it because I don't believe that we need the minutes when we have counselors that are reporting back, that we're not gonna send staff to get minutes, and we're not gonna distribute minutes and stuff. We distribute the staff reports. So I'm not supporting it just because it's gonna cost money to do something that we don't have to spend money on, but if anybody else thinks we should, then fine.
Councillor Ross.
Yeah, I have to agree with Mr. Krog. I mean, just looking at the Transition Housing Steering Committee, everybody is volunteers on this committee. We have people from BETHS, FIST, Whispers of Hope, Habitat for Humanity, James Wilson. There's other people who are on that committee. They're in the community, they have other jobs, or they're volunteers. And I can't really, it's so difficult for us to find that date, and to find that date of June 23rd at 3:30 in the afternoon. It took us almost a half an hour just to finally agree to that time. And to hold them accountable or to hobble them by the community charter, it's just, I don't want to do that. I think right now we are an organic committee. We are trying to move forward. I don't want to hobble them by the community charter. It's good work. And, you know, right now, June 23rd, 3:30, if you want to be here, show up. But right now, I just think we have to be a little bit more relaxed while we work with overtaxed people who are already suffering from volunteer burnout.
All recommendations in any event are presented to council. So all the information will come out, correct,
Oh, you're gonna get the terms of reference.
to our CAO persons now.
Mr. Mayor, in accordance with our procedure bylaw, we do have the rules for our standing committees and our select committees, and that clearly defines how council will ask for certain solutions to certain challenges. Ad hoc committees, basically, they are just simply there to report back to your committee of the whole without a structure. They're working under terms of reference that you will approve as council. And then that committee is just simply there to provide you information as a pro bono from members of the community. So they are providing it to you for free based on their professional experience. And as we do this, we must follow the charter when we're dealing with select committees and standing committees. When we deal with ad hoc committees, these committees basically are just folks that are out there providing committee of the whole information who will make a recommendation to council. So committee of the whole is all of council. That's the reason that you have the committee of the whole to deal with these other issues. So council participates in every committee discussion. So I hope that helps clarify that we will be following the charter when it comes to our charter responsibilities. But at the end of the day, ad hoc committees are simply ad hoc. They're just more. They're more of a council recommendation to your committee of the whole.
Thank you. That was the perception that I. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The other thing that causes me some concern is that if we're adding to the burden of our already overworked, overstressed staff, and I certainly don't want to add to their burden. They've got enough to deal with at the moment, and I think that this is just, I don't think this is a necessary step that we have to take, so I will not be supporting the resolution.
Councillor Hammond.
I agree. I believe that councillors are fulfilling their obligation in their councillor reports, and it's a lot more probably interesting to read the councillor reports that are short form and abbreviated and to the point than it is to go through minutes.
Having said that, we have a motion on the table. What was the motion, Councillor Butler, please?
Can we be transparent?
That's not what you said.
They can read it back, I've stated it twice.
And
First, post all committees and council meetings and meeting minutes as outlined in the procedure bylaw and as per the community charter.
there's no reference to ad hoc. Correct. So all in favor of that motion?
Because it doesn't talk about that.
So again, all in favor? All opposed?
Should talk about ad hoc. Do we have the vote?
Yeah, because that was not the original.
And there was no reference made to ad hoc, it was just a motion made that we follow procedures and policy regarding our charter. Am I correct?
Well,
I never made reference to the ad hoc because it's not mentioned in the community charter or procedures bylaw, I don't think.
Exactly, so. To our CEO, Mr. Allen.
Mr. Mayor, it's not an option for you to, as council, to not follow the charter or your procedure bylaw. You've already voted on that and the province regulates you on that, so therefore you must. It's not an option for you to decline that privilege. You can change your procedure bylaw, but the Crown, being the province, controls how you will operate your meetings. If you have an ad hoc, that's why it's not in the charter and that's why it's not in your procedure bylaw, because it doesn't exist. So regarding Councillor Butler's resolution, you are required to do so. It's not one that you need to vote on.
There's no motion required.
so it's sort of redundant. Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
So will you withdraw your motion?
Sure. I can.
Your worship, before we do.
Councillor Thompson.
It's just something for you all to look forward at our July regular meeting. You'll have 2 reports from me. I thought I had sent in my May report for this meeting and I guess I didn't do that, so. You have to wait with bated breath to see what I have to say.
We'll now move on to the verbal report from our Councillor Krog's report.
Okay. There was a board meeting I attended and a hospital district meeting I attended. There was not a lot specific or any specific to Grand Forks except for the bylaw for the boilers for Boundary Hospital. But of concern to the community, there was an Environmental Services Committee meeting on June the 10th. And the committee the General Manager of Environmental Services regarding the request I wasn't able to attend the meeting in person, but I was able to give my input to the meeting. And we were, council requested that fire chief contact the RD about possible relocation sites for our unmanned recycling station. Well, came as kind of a surprise when the actual recommendations come back. So I'll just kind of go through what's going on. So they gave us, or Mr. Stanley gave us some background. The RDKB operates a recycling depot in downtown Grand Forks for packaging and printed paper, located directly behind the fire hall on city property. The depot does not qualify for MMBC, so that is multi-material BC. So that is funds that they make the manufacturers pay in. So unmanned recycling depots do not fall under this. They will not receive funding. So no subsidies. It's operated at the sole expense of the RD. The depot is serviced by RD staff and equipment. It's well used, and with all unstaffed, depot presents a significant challenge in maintaining a clean and tidy site. Some people in the community have referred to it as an eyesore. It's more or less the people that are using it. When the RDKB board considered back in 13, the MMBC subsidies, the direction of staff was to maximize cost savings to either turning work over to MMBC or accepting subsidies where applicable. At the same time, since much information about that transition was not known, the board directed staff to maintain the existing network of services and facilities, even though some facilities would not qualify for subsidies. So it's kind of like, okay, they're out there, we'll just ignore them, okay? The objective was to minimize potential disruption, work for a time under the new protocols, and review the various levels. The process is ongoing. The RDKB, as Mr. Stanley says, was informed by the Grand Forks Fire Chief that due to equipment acquisitions, the space occupied would be needed by the fire department. Grand Forks City Council had expressed reservations regarding the closure of the site, and the fire chief, acting on behalf of the Grand Forks City Council, requested information on relocating the depot to another site in the downtown core of Grand Forks. Now here's the kicker. Due to ongoing and previously documented problems with unstaffed waste management sites, the RDKB board adopted a solid waste management facilities siting policy. And the objectives of the policy include directing the majority of solid waste facility customers to staff facilities, rationalizing service levels through the identification of service overlap, and establishing what they say is reasonable time travels to a solid waste facility. And that time was chosen as 30 minutes. Since the policy was adopted, 6 unstaffed facilities have been closed. So Beaverdale is an example, Roslyn, Janelle, they just finished closing Fruitvale because I believe Fruitvale was costing the RD $50,000 a year, and the landfill was adjacent. All residential users, and again, this is their argument, all residential users of downtown Grand Forks Depot receive curbside recycling collection with the exception of a small number of multifamily units. There is a depot at the Grand Forks landfill, and there is one specifically designed for commercial customers. One of my main arguments to keeping the depot was business, that business could go over there and they could put their stuff in because we weren't doing curbside for business. At the landfill, they actually have a place where business can dispose of their recycling in bulk. So they're not ripping open bags and trying to shove things through little slots. They actually open straight into the crusher. So they've made it easier for business. I still have concern about some of the multifamily things. But anyways, the landfill depot duplicates the downtown depot services and recycling services delivered by other means. Doesn't qualify for MMBC subsidies. And according to the online mapping software, I was going to go and test it, but the nearest staff facility is 4 minutes from the current site. I was actually going to go drive it and see if it actually was 4 minutes. There are no commercial or residential users in Grand Forks area further than 30 minutes from the nearest staff facility. So remember, this is all the regional district has the onus of landfills and recycling and all that. So basically they came back and, well, I'll get to that. Considering the close proximity to a staffed facility, they thought it was a duplication, and based on policy and service provision requirements, staff recommended that the Grand Forks Recycling Depot be shifted to the depot at the landfill, and it be permanently closed, period. So we asked, oh, can we talk about relocating? And they said, no, we're going to close it. But currently the time required to service the Grand Forks Depot is about 6 hours a week. Removing the depot would reduce equipment, fuel use, operation hours. With the expanding organics management, they could use that extra staff time up there. They do contract out the cleaning of the depot to a private individual at an annual cost of $6,000, and the person has requested a $300 a month. So we would be looking at $9,600 a year just for somebody to maintain it. That does not include all the costs for the RDB or the RD to actually go and collect it all, and that's why it's probably closer to that 50, 60,000. Okay, developing an alternative site in the downtown core of Grand Forks would require a suitable location with adequate roll-off truck access. A site would either be on public City of Grand Forks or RDKB property, or would have to be rented or purchased. Any new site would require $10,000 to $20,000 for infrastructure, all your pads, fencing. There are no funds budgeted for a new depot. Past experience in siting recycling depots suggests that there will be a strong neighborhood opposition to any proposed site. We went through it when the Roslyn site shut down and the city tried to save it, and it just went horribly wrong from that point on. A depot closure would require a communications plan, and staff suggested that the plan follow the same steps as they just did in Fruitvale. Okay, so then they came up with, here's your options. The Environment Service Committee recommends to the Board of Directors to direct staff to initiate the communication plan and then undertake the steps to close it. So in other words, they're going to communicate, but they're going to close it. Or that they could investigate alternate locations. The recommendation that went to the committee was the communications plan and shut it down. I proposed an alternate motion that the Environmental Services Committee recommend to the Board of Directors to direct staff to discuss the possible removal and relocation of the unmanned downtown recycling bins within the City of Grand Forks, including associated costs and location. So the committee endorsed that resolution that I made, but with a couple of tweaks. They wanted reference to location over the motion. So they basically ended up discuss a possible removal of the unmanned downtown recycling bins with the City of Grand Forks, including associated costs, etc. So they took out the word location. Now, the Environmental Services General Manager is going to discuss with us, whether it's council, whether it's staff, whether it's the fire department, possible relocation within the City of Grand Forks. So basically, they're looking at us to see if we have any sites that would work. One of their outstanding issues is our timeline, and I was going to ask through you to the fire chief when the bins have to be out to accommodate a new fire truck. Ask that through you to the fire chief. Do we know when we're getting the truck?
Yeah, the new fire truck should be here no later than 1st of July.
Okay. July 1st. I'm not done. I got a sentence left. So now we know that they would like it to be moved, because my suggestion was, that's fine, if you need to move it to meet our timelines, we'll just haul the bins, everything up to the landfill while we look at and discuss possible relocation in the downtown core. Honestly, I was one of the more vocal when it came to keeping those that site. It does make a lot of sense what the regional district is saying. Oh, and people may ask the question about, they say subsidies from the MMBC. You're looking at probably, guess, I think about $250,000 a year. So that is not light money. Like, that's a lot of money when it comes to the budget, because if we didn't have those subsidies, we'd be looking for taxation or increase in user fees to make up for that. So this seems to be the way that our area and the rest of the areas are going. And there's always a concern about if people can't recycle, they'll just dump, right? And Mr. Stanley and I had a conversation, and there was a thing in a Boundary newspaper, and I believe it was the Greenwoods, it might have been Greenwood or Rock Creek site, and how people were, it was just a garbage lane up there and people weren't doing it properly and da-da-da. That was from 1800 and something, right? So even when it was wide open and free, people were still doing what stupid people do, right? So that is the motion this was at the committee level, so it's going to the board meeting on June 18th, Thursday in Trail. So I will get to speak to it again. So I was looking for any information that council would like to put forward to that meeting. I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Krog. May I have a motion to receive Councillor Krog's verbal report? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammett, discussion. Councillor Hammett.
Councillor Krog, you said that you're in favor of relocating into another downtown location. I'm wondering if you thought about what would be a suitable location. And the other question is, I thought that site didn't qualify for the grants, the subsidies, but then you spoke about the $250,000 subsidy. So
that we get from, sorry, I'm not even about that we get from manned recycling sites as opposed to unmanned recycling sites. So that's where we get our subsidies. So there is no subsidy for that site. It's just straight cost. If I take my recycling and put it in my bag out front of my house, or I take it up to the landfill. I always, and at the time when this came up years ago about pulling it, business had a strong reaction to it. But at that time too, there wasn't the facilities that they have at the landfill now for taking care of business. My only concern too is that there still may be some people that fall through. Like I would like to see it there because the more we take out of that waste stream, the better, right? And even if it does get messy, it's still serving the better good for the community. But in answer to your question, I thought about it. I drove around, I looked, I used the information that we found when we tried to do that in Roslyn and what they found in Fruitvale. And honestly, I couldn't find any place that I thought would actually meet those requirements. So I still like the idea and I will still argue that we can have it, but I want to see, after hearing what I said about the reasons that the RDKB has for closing unmanned facilities, if there's anything else that you would like to bring to light at the meeting where they will actually make the decision, because this is just a recommendation.
Councillor Hammett.
So if they're providing a location at the landfill for the commercial businesses,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that it's free, like it is right now.
Yes.
So there's no cost to the businesses. If we choose to relocate them and we can't find suitable land downtown, well, if we did find suitable downtown land that's owned by the city, we would be paying for not just the cleanup, but also the removal, like for about $50,000 a year.
Yes, that's.
That would be coming,
basically
that the
where
city
we're
would be
going with
paying
that.
to have the service, whereas at the landfill, it's free. It doesn't cost us anything other than what our portion to the RDKB is. We're still paying to the RDKB
Yes.
annually anyway. And if we couldn't find suitable city property in the city, we'd be looking at leasing at a further expense.
Correct. It was like, sorry,
During the discussion with the manager, I said, well, in theory, we can have whatever we want, even though it's the bailiwick of the regional district. If we wanted to fund it, if we wanted to build it and fund it as a city, we could. I don't think we would find the willingness or support to do that, right? So there are still a couple of issues that we should be thinking about, and that's to make sure nobody falls through the holes And then there was the comment about the after hours access, right? Because it's free to take recycling up to the landfill. That actually, for anybody that uses this one that hasn't been up there, just speaking in favor of it, it's nicer, the slots are bigger, the bins are bigger, it's clean, you can take all kinds of recycling up there. It's all set up commercial, can just back up and dump. You know, so as probably the staunchest supporter of the bins downtown, I kind of see the writing on the wall too. But if there's any other arguments you'd like me to take forward, I will definitely take those.
Councillor Hammond.
Would the regional district consider moving those bins to the outside of the gate so that they were accessible 24/7 and not just during the landfill open hours?
I did ask that, and it was, if they're outside,
Gates.
no MMBC, because it's now unmanned, right? So it's that catch-22, because that's what, one of the complaints was, what about after hours, right? So that's my original thought, let's put outside the fence. But then it was pointed out that that doesn't exactly work, plus the cost, because if you've been to our landfill, it's not a dump, it's landfill. That highway traffic, you would have to redo the fencing to push everything back in order to actually bring the bins out, and then they wouldn't qualify because they're unmanned and all that stuff.
So if I understand this correctly, as of July 1st, we'll be moving the bins to the landfill, and then we're still possibly negotiating other sites,
Yeah.
which we brought to council.
Yes, well, they wanted the info of when we were getting the fire truck, when we needed the bins moved. So they would start their process but we're still talking to them.
So it's not written in stone.
It's not what they said, which was just shut it down. We've got a bit of breathing space, but honestly, I think that's where we're gonna end up.
Okay. So we have a motion to receive, all in favor. So carried. Moving along to our recommendations from staff for decisions from our corporate services. We have a Selkirk College Partnership for a Mural project. Last staff, is there anybody making this presentation? Or is there a presentation to be made?
Mr. Mayor, today this was discussed in committee of the whole. Staff would be happy to present it again if council wanted. If not, it would be on the table for you to discuss further after the committee of the whole meeting today.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would put a resolution forward that the city approve the partnership and funding for the Mural project with Selkirk College.
Do I have a second on that?
I'll second that.
Councillor Krog, discussion.
Yeah, just, not really an amendment, but I would also like to see the financials that go along with that request. It stated that it's for canvas and brushes, and I want to make sure that's what it's for. And if we go down this path, I would be thinking that we would require staff time and effort to come up with a way to affix those canvases. But if we do come up with a standard hanger, basically, for want of a better word, then it could be other artists, and we could recycle and keep it fresh. And I think it would be an awesome thing to do. If you remember, some of the paintings are still around town, right? And those were done, and council assisted that group, and we're going to unify that the city.
Any other questions or concerns?
Through you to Councillor Krog, do you want Was that a friendly amendment to the resolution? Did I put forward?
Yes,
To include the budget,
budget items showing what?
the $2,000 would be going for, I, with the secondar's concurrence, I would add that to the resolution.
Any other questions or debate? Councillor Ross?
Yeah, just being nitpicky here, but it's for canvas, paint / brushes, so I think if we just say art supplies, because it's adequate paint / brushes, which could also mean they might need some turpentine or something.
Here,
But I would just say, to purchase art supplies. I'll check that.
Any other discussion or debate? All in favor of the motion? So carried. Moving on to our next item is the Manager of Development Engineering. It is in regards to support from council to transfer the lease of 7212 Riverside Drive in the event that Habitat for Humanity Southeast BC should decide to withdraw from the lease. The recommendation is council chooses to support the transferring of the lease of 7212 Riverside Drive in the event that Habitat for Humanity Southeast BC decides to withdraw from the lease. Councillor Hammond?
I just would need to,
Yeah. Have a second. Discussion, Councillor Hammond?
I believe this was brought forward at our last council meeting, and if we were to review our minutes from the previous, I think it stated that because it said in the event that Habitat for Humanity decides to withdraw from the lease, and I think.
Directing it to staff, did we get any documentation yet that they have officially withdrawn? Have they withdrawn?
They have told us that they would like to withdraw, so basically we'd like council to support that resolution. The next steps would be for us to contact the agencies, then Habitat would submit their letter, and then we would transfer the lease.
So Habitat hasn't submitted their letter yet.
They would like council support that council will actually transfer the lease to BETHS and Whispers if they do withdraw.
So they're asking for what we call a guarantee from council before they actually submit a letter.
yeah.
I don't want to leave the partners in.
Having our discussion or debate on this. Councillor Krog?
To me, it just, to me, it just seems strange that we would do a, it's like it's backwards.
Yeah.
So if they want to withdraw, they send the letter, and then we look at transferring the lease and discussing with the two remaining agencies. So the way it's written, I can't support it because to me it's backwards.
I concur that because it seems a hypothetical motion we're putting on the table. We don't have any guarantees that they're going to withdraw, so we're in the middle of everything. Councillor Butler?
It seems to me that we have their verbal word that they would like to withdraw, but they want to guarantee, like Councillor Ross said, that their partners aren't going to be left hanging without a lease and be evicted or whatever, right? They don't know what's happening. So they just want assurance that council will transfer the lease if they remove themselves from it. I can understand that.
I would recommend council to send this back to staff to get an official letter from Habitat. First and foremost, get the ball rolling properly in proper sequence.
Push my button, but then I forgot. I was so fascinated by the light. What I was, help me remember? No, there was something in response to Councillor Butler's comment. Like, I believe everybody understands that what the rationale is. Oh, I know what it was the verbal, we have the verbal word from Habitat that they're going to withdraw. What we have also
had was information coming from, I think, all three organizations about what's been said and who's been said it, and they don't speak for Habitat, or they don't speak for Whispers, or they don't speak for. So until it's in writing from their board, then I know it's official, just words about people, because we ran into that just a little while ago.
Plus their commitment is verbal, ours is not. Once we make a resolution, it's documented, and we are writing them. So the motion to make a decision on the transferring of lease, there's a motion on the table, so we can either amend it or we can vote it down. All in favor of the motion? All opposed? Motion is defeated. Councillor Krog.
New motion. We send this back or we request staff to inform Habitat that we would like their decision in writing or to know if they are pulling out or whatever. So we want the official thing, and then we can discuss and decide what the next step is.
Do we have a second on that motion? Councillor Thompson, any discussion? Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I think that's the more prudent way to go, to have something in writing from Habitat that indicates that they will be canceling their lease effective whatever date, and then we can take it from there.
I concur that with Councillor Thompson, because we're not backing away. We're going to stay on this one. So, Councillor Ross.
Although I did speak in favor, I did vote in favor of the previous motion, I will vote in favor of this one as well, simply because I think it's important for the city to express some goodwill towards these volunteer organizations. And we need to heal some rifts and just move forward.
So all in favor of the motion to send it back to staff to get official documentation. So carried. From our manager of operations, the solid waste collection agreement with RDKB. The recommendation is council formalize the solid waste collection agreement with Regional District of Kootenay Boundary. All in favor of that motion? Councillor Butler, Councillor, did I see Councillor Ross a second? Discussion. All in favor? So carried. On our information items from Bernice Tetreault, it's in regards to music in the park. Subject is retirement announcement from Music in the Park. And the recommendation is that council receive for information and note Bernice's retirement from Music in the Park and direct staff to send a letter to Bernice thanking her for her years of working regarding Music in the Park. And a motion. Councillor Krog, Councillor Hammond, seconder. Any discussion? All in favor? So carried. More information, civic info. The subject matter is the 2015 UBCM convention meeting request with Premier Christy Clark and Provincial cabinet ministers. And recommendation council receive for information and discuss if they would like to meet with Premier and direct staff on a preferred topic. May I have a motion? Councillor Hammond. Councillor Butler, discussion.
There's one topic that seems to keep coming up, and it's being discussed in many different committees and workshops that I've been to, as well as Councillor Thompson and Councillor Ross, between the Gilpin Grasslands and Kettle River Watershed. Kettle River Water starts here. The environment, Granby Wilderness, like there's so many different organizations that have a stakeholder in our water, and we have discussed the riparian zones and protecting the waters. And there is a buffer zone, and it's directed by the provincial government, but there's no enforcement. And so I propose that council work on a resolution. I've talked to Graham Watt from the Kettle River Watershed Management Committee, and we've attended a 4.5-hour roundtable a week or so ago on the water starts here. And it was very informative. It was in my report, unfortunately. It was very lengthy and didn't talk about it tonight. But I would like to see, and I think Graham Watt has agreed that he would help us word this, and with Area D and all the other stakeholders, to make a resolution to take back to the province, to the UBCM, regarding the enforcement and reaffirmation of the riparian zones on our waterfronts.
Councillor Dawson.
I agree, Councillor Hallett, with everything that you're saying. But what I would like to suggest is that we would be, I think, premature in trying to arrange a meeting right now at the UBCM with the minister. I would propose or suggest that we spend the next few months working with Graham Watt and Rolly Russell and others on that committee and formulate a brief and a resolution that we would take forward to the next AKBLG to get support from the association, and then have that forwarded on to UBCM. UBCM will accept late resolutions depending on the nature, and I think if we try to get this through this year, I don't think we're going to be successful. So I would just maybe just to, I agree it's important. The buffers are not enforced. There is no buffer at all required for agricultural purposes, so that that they can plant their crops right down to the river's edge.
Cows
And cows, yes, and that can destroy the ecosystem and the natural habitat that lives there. So I support the idea. I really think rather than rushing into it, I'd like to take a step back and really get the full background and information and work together with Rolly and Graham and develop a good report.
Just to inform council, we're only receiving this for information and some discussion, so we're not making any decisions tonight. Councillor Hammond.
The only reason I'm bringing it up now is because I know that this group and the people that were at this roundtable have been working on this project for 2 years. It's quite an extensive amount of background work that's gone into it, as we can see with the materials that were provided to us. It's June now. We're going to be meeting with at the UBCM in September. So I was kind of hoping that perhaps throughout the summer and over the next couple of months, we could work with this group, and it would still give us time. If we wait until we present it to the AKBLG next spring, it'd be a year, September, before it goes to the province. So it's just, we're looking at an additional year in delay. I'm just wondering, like, if we could talk to these groups, if we could talk to Area D, Rolly and Graham and Jenny Colesill and all the other parties, Grace McGregor, and see if there's any way, or see what they would like to present. And we try to facilitate that.
We will be directing this through staff as a motion. Councillor Krog.
Yeah, I was looking at it, seeing if there was a deadline. Right, it just says that the online forum is going to be available on the 15th, but it doesn't say when the cutoff is or how much time is allotted. And I like the idea of taking the time. We'll get all our ducks in a row. I just don't want to miss out on the actual meeting. if every community asked to meet with a minister or the premier, and all the time is gone, no matter how much we planned, we don't have it. I would like to see us go on there on the 15th and say, yeah, we want to meet with Christy and all the ministers that we may want to talk to. And if at the end of the day we don't have anything to say, I'm more than willing to sit there with her and discuss anything.
How awesome job she's doing. So the point is there a deadline? Do we need to get in the queue? Should we just be saying, yes, we want a meeting? Here's kind of the topic. We'll get back to you.
And then maybe.
Towards you, Mr. Owen, has been waiting very patiently.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So traditionally, there is a deadline, which I believe will be August 15th. We'll have to have our briefs prepared. I believe the meeting with the Premier requires the briefs to be prepared for the end of July. And just as an example, in the past, once councils has their strategic priorities in place, they have things completed. So what they've decided to, what councils decided to do is meet with, say for instance, they've met with Minister Oakes regarding the asset management plan to get in front of this and let them know that they are finished or they're working diligently on this. Reminding Minister Oakes of the work that council's done this year by supporting UBCM in provision of sharing council's plan throughout the province of British Columbia, reminding them that they need to be, Grand Forks needs to be at the front of the bus when it comes to the grants being offered up for all of the stewardship that they provided. Will remind the minister when the decisions are being made on the grants. Other meetings we've had is we've met with the Minister of Mines. We've met with the Minister Thompson regarding the deer issue, and that was a collaborative effort based on all the communities and what they've been doing. So generally what happens is you'll meet with them on your completed plans once you've refined them, and you're going there now to remind them of what you've done and the stewardship piece that you've played in your community. Councillor Hammett's suggestion is a good one, but I think we are a little bit away from that process. And I think once we go there, we have to have a definitive ask of what we're looking for. When we go to the minister, we have to say, this is what we're looking for. This is what we've done. Now it's time for you to be able to demonstrate to us. Minister Thompson came back with some recommendations on the Deer Committee and some funding that he was going to be putting, making available. Therefore, we've got the officer, the compliance officer, or the wild state coordinator through this process. Through UBCM, we've been able to understand a little bit further regarding the Minister of Mines regarding some issues we've had in our community. And further, we've been able to remind the Minister Oakes about our asset management planning, and this is where we've been getting a lot of advice and a lot of recommendations from them or assurance from them that we are doing things in the expectations of the province. So we are going to be in a position to be able to achieve some grants. So that's the nature of our conversations. We're going to get about 8.5 minutes. We're going to get shouted into the room, and they're going to say go. And you're going to be able to put your pitch on the table. One of the councillors, basically what's happened in the past is the councillor that has been responsible for that in their portfolio, whether it's them chairing a committee, they're usually the ones leading that conversation with the minister. The mayor will, in the past, we met with the minister last year regarding the housing issue, and Minister Coleman basically laughed us out of the room in our request. And it was a very humiliating meeting for our organization because they basically said, no way, no how. And then, then later on down the line, they come back and they offer us money through the BC Housing. So this is where we get out there, and this is how a lot of things get precipitated. So just giving council a good idea of what this looks like.
Councillor Butler and Councillor Ross.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Hammett. I remember Mr. Smith of the Deer Committee saying that he might want to speak with a minister regarding a deer call at this point. I was wondering if he is prepared to do that.
Or if you would be. I believe Gary Smith was going to do a report. I know he was going to request. We have a Deer Committee meeting tomorrow at 11. Just looking for my report here, because my notes are in there. So I've included it in my report, but I didn't discuss it because I know Gary Smith was was hoping to do a presentation. And the discussion was that they were tentatively looking at suggesting that perhaps the number be reduced back to 2007 numbers. Another long-term, that was a long-term objective, that wasn't immediately. The other long-term objective was to restore the deer natural habitat surrounding areas, which would be part of the riparian areas. It all falls into all of the organizations, all of the groups, all of the committees, all seem to land back at the rivers and the habitat. This year's deer count came in at 166. April 2008, it was 90. So one thing that they want to do is they want to make sure from here at this point on that the deer counts are done the same week in each year, not different months from year to year, because it's not as consistent. There was no. It says Gary Smith will present.
Point of order, we are deviating from the subject here, we're discussing the issues.
I don't have an answer for you, because Gary Smith said he would present to council at June 15th committee of the whole. And so.
Councillor Ross.
Yeah, just speaking quickly to this, when we get an invitation to speak to a minister and they give us 8 minutes, I think what really works is many voices in one message. And I know when we've gone to the Gilpin Grasslands meeting, and evidently the issues are right throughout the Boundary Region and the Kootenays. And when we talked about it there, we said every community is struggling with the same issues around nutrient management. Nutrient management in terms of activities close to waterways, and that could be cattle or farming or golf courses or anything near wells or whatever. And I said, we need to get together. And we have a really good model. There are several good models right across Canada, and one of them is the nutrient management plan that came out of Ontario, was adopted by Quebec, New Brunswick, and I believe Manitoba. And I think coming forward, if we can take a lead in this and invite sister jurisdictions throughout the region to say, we are meeting with Christy Clark, Minister Clark, and we are going to ask Minister Clark to enforce a nutrient management plan modeled on the same management plan that's used in other jurisdictions across the country, and ask them to get on board with that. Then I think we're really going to be killing many birds with one stone. So I'm just wondering, so that we're just not going in there on our own saying we want to enforce a nutrient management plan, but we have other jurisdictions that are struggling with exactly the same issues. We come together and we ask her en masse to please work with us in developing a nutrient management plan specific for BC, modeled on what's been done out of the province.
Councillor Thompson.
I absolutely agree with you, Councillor Ross. But we're not going to be able to get together with our sister communities until the next AKBLG. And this is too important an issue from my perspective to go rushing in. I think we need to really have some meaningful meetings. We need to prepare some background information on it. We need to circulate it. We need to get to the support of the AKBLG and move this forward, because it's just too important. Our water, our potable water, our aquifer, the whole 9 yards. Really, we need to take our time.
Okay, so we have a question on the table. To receive the information, and we've had our discussions, and we need to direct staff on preferred topics. So all in favor of that motion? So carried.
What are our preferred topics?
We're going to be directing staff. We don't have any yet. We're going to discuss it. I believe that was what most councillors said. We'll take our time and discuss some of the issues, right? It's directed to staff.
Yes, your worship, but particularly with respect to the riparian areas and the water. So I wouldn't support recommending a meeting with any ministers with regard to that issue this year.
Okay, moving on to our next item, it's the correspondence from Friday, June the 5th. The subject at hand is the support and non-support letters for Councillor Butler, and the recommendation is council receive these letters for information. Councillor Ross, do I have a second? Councillor Hammond. All in favor? So carried. Moving on to our bylaws section now. The Manager of Development and Engineering. Subject matter to amend the current zoning bylaw by rezoning property located at 832 64th Avenue from the current R1 single two-family residential to zone to R4 rural residential zone. And the recommendation is for council to select one of the listed options, but I believe I would recommend council to, we have a gentleman here that wants to make a presentation, or we will have another public hearing. We had discussed this at a previous meeting, I believe. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would support a resolution that we direct staff to advertise, and we will hold a second public hearing on July the 20th. And that staff proceeds with the statutory requirements for amending the bylaws and the Local Government Act.
Do I have a second? Councillor Butler. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Hammond.
I'm not sure what's going to be gained by a second public hearing. I don't think the applicant has attended any of the readings that we've had so far to date.
But we have had individuals that came after the fact in our last meeting. He said we would be discussing it again, bringing it forward. So the only way to do it is to have another public hearing, and hopefully the applicant will be present.
Or option
It's
two.
a next story, but we are here now. Can we talk now about that?
That's what I was going to say. Oh, okay, no, that's what.
I'm sorry, sir, Councillor Krog.
Oh, actually, Councillor Butler.
Councillor Butler.
I just wanted to let the public know that there is a question period at the end where public is able to ask questions at the end of the meeting, but not during the meeting. Sorry.
Councillor Krog.
When it comes to public hearings, once we've had the public hearing, we're not allowed to take in any information. And that's what is going to be proposed by the people here today, which would then avoid the public hearing. So if we choose to go to a public hearing, then we can hear more information before we make our decision.
At the public hearing. At the public hearing, not a question period, because that would be new information coming in.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you through the staff. I believe that the first public hearing was already compromised with additional discussion after the meeting closed, and so that's why I am suggesting that we hold a second public meeting for public hearing on this bylaw.
Mr. Mayor, the information, I don't know, Councillor Thompson's recommendation is important. That if council wants to hear any more information, we would have to undertake the second public hearing. Whether we compromise the initial public hearing, I don't know that that would necessarily be the case, but I would just recommend that if council does want to hear any more information or hear from any other petitioners in favor or against it, that they would recommend to hold another public hearing. If not, it's before council, and you can simply choose to accept the rezoning. You can choose to decline the rezoning, or you can move it into the public hearing form.
Councillor.
In the light of the fact that we've already had a public hearing and the people in attendance were against the rezoning, and the petitioner for the rezoning wasn't here, if we conduct another public hearing, is there a cost associated with that?
To RCO, Mr. Allen, or just advertised.
Mr. Mayor, the cost will be the staff time and the advertising. So council will have the public hearing. Generally, they hold it at 6 p.m. or you can hold it earlier prior to a council meeting. So there would be no additional cost for venue, but it would be the staff time to prepare the public notices, send them out. The other piece would be the report to come back to council.
Councillor Hammond.
So would that cost be borne by the city or by the petitioner?
Say. So we have a motion on the table to recommend staff to hold another public hearing.
It's gonna be expensive. Not my part.
All in favor to hold another public hearing? So carried. Under bylaws for manager of operations, subject at hand is the bylaw 2015-215 Electrical Utility Regulatory Bylaw. The recommendation is that council give final reading to bylaw 2015 Electrical Utility Regulatory Bylaw. Councillor Thompson. Councillor Butler. Discussion. All in favor? So carried. On our late items, we don't have any, except as mayor, I'd like to put out to the public that we received a $460,000 grant for our sewer project. Our MLA will be releasing more information to the public on this. It can come out as a press release. Just sharing this, since we always have bad news, so we have some good news to offer. Now we'll be hearing questions from the public and the media. The gentleman in front.
Craig Lindsay, Grand Forks Gazette. Just want a clarification on how they voted for the BETHS lease transfer. I believe it was Julie voted affirmative and everybody else was against it. First motion, is that correct? Okay, because they had a second. Thank you. And then for the second motion to send back to staff, that was carried unanimously?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Gentleman in the second row.
I'm Phil Morrow, live in Grand Forks, taxpayer. I was noticing that on today's agenda, there was the letters supporting Ms. Butler, Councillor Butler, and I've got a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor and councillors. It was proposed during the last regular council meeting that each council member be given $500 every year for the purchase of their own computer instead of the city supplying a computer for councillors' use. At that meeting, one of the councillors proposed that they should be given $2,000 at the start of the term to purchase their own computer, as they can't possibly buy a computer for $500. Now, isn't this a conflict of interest for councillors to pass a bylaw which would give them tax dollars from the city to buy their own computers? Well, we're on this topic of conflict of interest. It was also stated at the last council meeting that Councillor Butler was being referred to the Supreme Court to have her disqualified from council because of conflict of interest. This conflict appears to have come about because she voted on water meter related bylaws and she had a lawn care business. Also, it has been stated numerous times that the mayor must recuse himself from any issue having to do with water meters because he has a conflict of interest. It appears that this supposed conflict of interest arises from his asking for information on the bidding for the installation of the water meters in 2014. He never submitted a quote, and he was not mayor at the time. How does this constitute a conflict of interest? Also, the councillor who runs a lawn care business in this city should recuse himself from any issue having to do with water meters. What about the two councillors who were on the previous council meeting? On the previous council, which voted to terminate the CAO, and then were on the selection committee, which selected and rehired the same person who had previously been terminated for the position of CAO. Can there be a conflict of interest there? since on one hand, they were in meetings which terminated, and then were in meetings which hired the same CAO. Then there's a councillor who has a catering business. His only business also uses water. Should he also recuse himself from any water meter-related discussions? Let's see, I think I missed something here. Okay, so if those two people are in conflict of interest, then I submit that the councillor who has a commercial vegetable garden within the city limits is also in a conflict of interest and should recuse herself from any issue having to do with water meters, as well as the councillor who runs the lawn care business. With 5 councillors and the mayor in a possible conflict of interest regarding water meters, this leaves only 2 councillors who have no current perceived conflict of interest relating to the water meter issue. Should they be the only ones voting and making decisions on water meters? It seems that the only councillor members with a conflict of interest are ones who don't agree with the installation of water meters, as was proposed by the previous council and senior city staff. These 2 people are also the only ones who have been pushing for open council and fewer Section 90 meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Krog.
I gotta respond to that.
Go for it.
Yes, I have a catering business and yes, I use water. And right now I pay a flat rate, which I don't think is fair. I think I should pay for what I use, so I'm probably gonna pay a lot more than you are because I'm probably gonna use a lot more water. And just to make sure that I'm not the only one in conflict, I also have a toilet and I have a shower, and I never ever showed up at any kind of council meeting and said that you know, water meters would hurt my catering business. I was thinking, yeah, I need to pay my fair share just like everybody else. But feel free to come and use my toilet.
That was rather facetious, but that's all right.
Yes.
What I was getting at, I guess it went over your head. What I was getting at, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous saying that one person has a conflict of interest just because she had a lawn care business. The same as it's ridiculous that any of you have any conflict of interest with what I brought forth. Thank you.
I just think Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe I was the one that made reference to, rather than getting $500 per year, that it would be better to have $2,000 reimbursed upon receipt of purchasing of a computer or a laptop or whatever. What I'm using right now belongs to the city, and it's a city asset. And it is subject to being replaced as, you know, over time. And it adds to the amount that we have on our asset for management. And the recommendation and the reason that it would be that we would have our own computers is that it would take it off our assets and become our own.
I realize that, but you can buy a very good computer for $500, which will do everything that you need to do in council, unless you want a gaming computer, of course. I bought an i3 computer, which is a fairly fast computer for my wife last year, under $500 at Costco.
Well, we would have to work with our IT professionals on what, I mean, I'm not I can use a computer, but don't ask me what goes on inside because I have no clue.
I do.
And so we would work with our IT people to make sure that what we were wanting to purchase would meet the requirements in order to do our city business.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Lori Federico, taxpayer, business owner for 20 years. I think if people really paid attention to what had been going on in their civic politics, I recall back in the 90s, late 90s, we were informed that we would be getting water meters at some point. My business was one of the first businesses to have a water meter installed. I'm in favor of the water meters. I check my bill at home every month. I think I pay about $18 a month for water. You know what? I don't care. It doesn't affect my life that much. As a business owner, I'm really appalled at what's been going on because I would like to see the downtown core grow. I would like to see more business in town. And I think what is going on in council chambers is just absolutely ridiculous. And just because who's ever the loudest. And I watched a little bit this morning and there was a gentleman that spoke up and said, you work with us, we'll work with you. Really? Who's holding who hostage? And I think it's just absolutely ridiculous. And as a business owner for over 20 years in this town, I pay my business license on time, I pay my city taxes on time, and if anybody ever paid attention to their civil politics back in the mid-90s, late 90s, it was put out there that we would be having water meters at some point in time. So really, people, you had your chance almost 15 years ago to bitch about it. It's here. That's all I have to say.
I've been giving you a lot of leeway here, but the discussion on water meters is not on the agenda.
He brought it up.
No, I was talking about conflict of
Conflict
interest.
of interest, but you brought up,
In all due respect.
he
we're
had,
not gonna have controversy in reality, please. Any other questions? Councillor Hammond?
Just in response to Mr. Laro's comments about conflict of interest, he's making it sound like council has decided and made this decision, and what I need to remind him is that this was under the advice of the corporation's lawyers. This wasn't something that the council decided, so this just didn't come out of the air. We've got an obligation to protect the corporation and the city and the taxpayers, and we're following the advice given by the corporation's lawyers.
Councillor Krog?
So we're actually having two conversations here at the same time. One about computers and one about water meters, I think. So going back to the computer, there is a cost associated, obviously, with running city business. As it stands right now, we are provided by a computer, provided with a computer. And I would love to be able to buy a good computer for $500 that had all the software, which if it's a PC, they charge me extra, and I think Office alone was like, I don't know, $300. So I did it. I bought a PC for myself. I bought Macs for myself. And one of the things that people are forgetting, it's the other costs that councillors need, the internet access, all of that stuff goes into one. So I don't know what they paid for those ThinkPads, but I can guarantee that I wouldn't have paid that much, and I have a different term for them. And they're quality, IBM Go. So yes, if that's what you want to do. Remember, there was also discussion about opting out. So if a person had a computer and they wanted to use it and they didn't need or want those funds, that they wouldn't take those funds. As of right now, the city spends that money, whether you take the computer or not, right? So it might be just a little bit of a way to cut down on it. So there are a lot of other things that go with it, the software, everything.
Councillor Butler?
I just wanted to clarify that the city lawyers give an opinion. They don't advise council, as far as I know, to remove another councillor from office.
Are there any other questions or concerns from the gallery? The gentleman in the second row.
My name is Hamilton, James Hamilton. Just a little comment on this. It's obvious that nobody here is in conflict of interest. Nobody stands to make anything or really lose anything from the water meters. The concern about water meters is only about the RF, the radiation. That was the concern. However, there is a conflict of interest that I see. Who is going to make money if Councillor Butler is taken to court? Two farmers go to court over a cow. Who makes the money? The lawyer gets the cow. The lawyers making $500 to $1,000 an hour are recommending something where they're going to make money. There's a conflict of interest. That's by the by. What I wanted to bring up was on page 112 of what you were talking about earlier. It was advance of the community's capacity for self-sufficiency. I understand earlier this day, it was suggested that it would be a good idea to cut back the watering days to perhaps 2 a week or even 1 to save water in the future. This was a suggestion of a potential, right? Anyway, it wasn't proposed that it would happen, it might happen. And I see this would go totally against this 3.4.5, advance the community's capacity for self-sufficiency. It says here that there'll be survey local producers to determine opportunities and gaps and so on, and to increase the production of local food materials and energy so Grand Forks is less reliant on outside sources for these necessities. So if there's people like myself, for example, who have a good garden, today I got up and I cut down a whole bunch of kale and a whole bunch of, what's that called, kamatsuna, put it in 2 big boxes and took it down to Whispers of Hope so they could eat. That's a volunteer. One councillor said we have to be a little relaxed with overtaxed people who are supporting or suffering from volunteer burnout. What I'm saying is we should remember that people in this society have gardens and they're gardeners, and we should be considering what will keep these gardens going if we're going to have this increased production and consumption of local food materials and energy. Less reliant on outside sources. This is wonderful, but I don't think we should be creating a problem with cutting back on the water.
With all due respect, is there a question on all that?
Well, the question is, are you going to remember what I said when it comes to voting for cutting back the water or not?
The water issue wasn't on this evening's agenda.
Well, it was on here. Page 112. Anyway, sorry if I was out of order there. It didn't seem out of order. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any other questions or concerns from the gallery? The gentleman in the second row.
Yes, my name is Tim Butler. I'm a homeowner and taxpayer. All of my taxes are paid up. This councillor here actually brought up an interesting question about chickens allowed in the yard in the rural area.
No,
Now,
in the city.
In the city. Is Ruckle the rural area?
It's considered part of the city.
It's R1, okay. One of the, actually, this is in regards to the applicant looking for the R1 to R4 change. He has chickens. Last 2 months, he's had a rooster. The rooster's now gone because it's 7 o'clock in the morning, wonk, 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 until 8 o'clock at night, wonk, 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 all day long for 2 months. He now has like 4, 6 little chicks, and I'm going, okay. Now, this is a fellow that actually is going for this zone change. Okay, if he's doing that, he's not supposed to be doing. Once the zone change happens, I was just actually reading through this. He's allowed to build a barn. He's allowed to basically have a mini farm sort of thing. That's right across the street from my place. The reason I moved from big city to Regina is to have peace and quiet. With the farm right next door, it's also like I've given Mr. Mayor 4 letters. And also, the gentleman that actually spoke out of turn here, he actually was in Romania for a month. That's why he missed the May 28th meeting. He's against it. And these are all people directly,
Sir, you're getting ahead of yourself. We are having a public hearing on this, so it would be in your best interest not to continue discussing it.
okay? I'm
So
just
as not to
actually,
compromise the public hearing that will be held.
okay, I was actually just wondering about these chickens because now there's a whole
Giving
bunch.
you a lot of latitude, but you're stepping over.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ross.
We're aware that there's people who have chickens in the city. And if you look at other, if you look at other jurisdictions, there's bylaws around that, which doesn't allow roosters. So once you have a bylaw that says, you can have chickens in the city, it's very, very strict. And there will be no rooster, so that, it almost would become a moot point.
Otherwise we'll have to call him wrestling. Any other questions or concerns from the gallery? So, and may I have a motion to adjourn? Don't need a second. All in favor? Carried. This meeting is adjourned.